Welcome everyone to our presentation, our live talk with Dacre Stoker, great-grandnephew of Bram Stoker. And we are going to talk about the Dracula Tour 2024 with a focus on Whitby and York this time. So we are going to show you the itinerary of our planned tour of North Yorkshire with these three highlights: York, Robin Hood's Bay, and Whitby. My name is Gloria Anderson. I am based in Stockholm, but I am originally from Transylvania. Together with Nora, I run the tour company Experience Transylvania. We have the head office here in Stockholm, but we also have an operations office in Sibiu in Transylvania. So that's why you will probably sometimes see our homepage with like a .se coming from Sweden, but our operations are in Transylvania, and we do tours actually all over Europe. But for the Dracula tours, we are focusing on Transylvania, England, Scotland, and Ireland. And we have the honor and the pleasure to collaborate with Dacre Stoker, international best-selling author and great-grandnephew of Bram Stoker, in order to take out the best of the Dracula theme during these tours. So as you see on the screen, the dates for the 2024 England tour are 24th to 28th of May. Please feel free to email us at info@transylvania.se. And a very nice picture from a previous tour. This is actually the third edition. 2024 is the third time we run this tour in a bit of a different format, but it's a third time we go back together with Dacre and visit Whitby and commemorate the date of the 26th of May. That's the date when the novel Dracula was published.
It's now my turn to jump in. Thank you, Gloria, for all the introductions. But as you guys have heard, the company that I work with functions in many places, Transylvania being one of their specialties. But what we're here to tell you is there's a lot more to Dracula than Transylvania. We have great times going to these trips, and if you are interested in going to any of them, you can see on the screen we are running one this year, not too many days after the Whitby trip, the 1st to the 11th of June, with an optional extension after that. So there's also a full video that you can ask for, one of the similar presentations that we're doing today, all about that trip. So you can also get that from info@transylvania.se. Couple just teasers in front of you: Bran Castle, Vlad the Impaler, and the Castle of Toursburg. Those are the things that you will learn much more about if you ask for that video. But Gloria, let's go to the next slide, and let's get knee deep into Bram Stoker and a little bit of his history and what brought him to Whitby and what we'll experience when we're there. So my great-granduncle was actually born in Ireland. He was born and raised there and got very much inspired, I believe, by the Irish folklore, his experiences, both in Dublin Castle, at Trinity College, and so on. Then he moved to London, where he worked for Henry Irving for 27 years, and he was further inspired by some of the things that went on in the Lyceum Theatre, some of the characterization of Henry Irving himself on stage and off stage, I believe, worked their way into the novel Dracula. While he was in London, he did a lot of research, and the research books that he used have actually been discovered not too long ago, and that has given me tremendous insight into what I believe are some of the main sources of information that helped Bram write Dracula. One of the most important things, though, is his trip to Whitby in Yorkshire in 1890. He took one holiday, and one holiday only there that we have records of, which inspired him so much that he changed many parts of the story, and in particular set chapters 6, 7, and 8 in Whitby. He did go up the coast to Cruden Bay after his summer holidays in Whitby, where he actually had at least 13 visits in Cruden Bay, and that's actually where he wrote Dracula. And from time to time, we do visit Cruden Bay. We're not going there this year. We're thinking of going there next year, though. So we're gonna alternate from year to year, going to either Whitby or Cruden Bay, Scotland. And then also mentioning how Bram learned actually in Whitby about the Wallachian prince and turned him into a Transylvanian count. And this is a very important part of his trip to Whitby. So you'll be learning more about that on this particular trip. And some of the cool pictures, the spots where things happen in the novel, and we're going to be standing at these spots. We're going to be reading from the novel and giving people opportunities themselves to read from the novel. Here's an example of the inn at Robin Hood's Bay, where Bram actually went there himself with his wife and his son to have tea, and he actually set a severe tea with Mina and Lucy and her mother there. And there was an excerpt that lots of the people from our tours like to read, and we record them on their phones for them there. You'll see the middle shot, one of our best friends, Gary Cheeseman, and his wife, are wonderful cosplayers. I know that Glenn is on the call. He's also one of them as well, who loves to dress up and do some reenactments. These guys always love to come out and take photos with us. Here he is standing in front of St. Mary's Church and the graveyard that features in the novel. I actually believe we're standing in front of the headstone of Anne Swales, where Bram got the name Captain Swales. And then over to the right, I'm standing in front of Quayside, which is a wonderful bar and restaurant. We actually have a meal in there you'll learn about in a moment. That's actually the site of the old Whitby subscription library and museum and baths, where Bram actually learned about Dracula. So we'll all get a chance for many photo ops, and I'll be explaining to you the significance of these places as we visit them.
Let us have a look at the map. As you see, this is a very straightforward route, quite simple actually. We have our hub for getting together in York, and also later on for departing back on our way home is also York, because York is easy to reach from several locations in the UK, especially by train from either Manchester, about 1.5 hours, or from London, about 2.5 hours by train. So let's say you're flying from the US or any other place in the world into Manchester or London, and then you simply take a direct train to York. And then from York, later on, after we've gathered, it's about 1.5 hours to Whitby. So depending on what you want to do before or after the tour, whether you land from the US or already based in the UK or coming from another place in the world, York is perfectly located for our logistical needs for this tour. Plus, it is also a very inspiring cultural and historical hub, not only a logistical one. So this is the itinerary, and we are going to travel around except for the times we are in Whitby already, of course, where we don't need a means of transportation, but for the transfers between places, we're going to travel around in a very comfortable minivan with our local Yorkshire expert, Costin of Dracula's Minibus, whom we see on picture here with the red and white band on the arm. And we are starting in his hoods in York. That's where he lives. Costin is Romanian actually, but has been living in the UK for a long while now. And he's going to drive us from York and up to Whitby, and also show us around a little bit in York. So this is where we start. Day one, arriving into York, I'd recommend you arrive around noon or in the early afternoon, so we can all check in at our centrally located inn in York. Lunch is not included on the first day, so make sure you've had lunch before we start or before we meet, so you are filled with energy, because it's a fully booked afternoon. So it's a lot of activities with an orientation walk, starting with an orientation walk in this very exciting historical town. We will visit York Minster, go through several layers of history, all the way from Roman to Viking times, and then down to Guy Fawkes and the gunpowder plot of the 1600s, and then the arrival of the railway in the 1800s, and so on up to nowadays. So you see, it's quite a few layers of history that we have to go through. We will experience a very hands-on history tour or a story of the town by visiting York Dungeon and then strolling around at the Shambles, this quarter or this area of the old town, an alleged place of inspiration for Diagon Alley in the movie adaptation of the Harry Potter series. And in the evening, we get together for a very pleasant welcome dinner at what is believed to be the birthplace of Guy Fawkes, this most iconic figure behind the gunpowder plot, which was meant to blow up the English Parliament in the early 1600s. And the Guy Fawkes face is now very well known thanks to what most of us recognize as the so-called anonymous mask. The place, so the Guy Fawkes Inn, is a really nice, cozy restaurant with a lot of themed reminders of that bonfire night, the 5th of November, when the conspirators led by Guy Fawkes planned to blow up the Parliament. But we're not conspiring to any more than just starting our literary expedition. So it will be a very good occasion, a very good opportunity to sit down together, sit down by the fire where we can conspire on how to make the best out of our very exciting literary expedition with Dacre Stoker in Bram Stoker's and Dracula's footsteps, imaginary footsteps. This is the first day. And then we go to the next day, day 2, the 25th of May, where we leave York, we check out from York and travel towards Whitby with a stop in Robin Hood's Bay. Dacre, would you like to...
Yeah, let me take it from here because it's a wonderful little town. It's sort of this little secret that doesn't play a whole massive role in the novel, but because it's something that I know that Bram and Florence and Noel walk to. And if you look down the picture, the cliffs all the way down until it gets really small, there's actually a trail all the way from Whitby, a cliff walk that people do to go to Robin Hood's Bay. So a lot of people really into the hiking, and that's what something that people did in the Victorian era. They'd go for these walks, and it's so cool to see almost the way he described Lucy and Mina's walk and Lucy's mother. Encountering cows, and I'm sure that Bram did exactly the same thing. And the Bay restaurant, exactly the same one, is still there, almost to the same room that we can go in. And it's just such a quaint, nice place to go and visit. And here you go, you see us standing outside the Bay Hotel, and at low tide you can kind of really see the underbelly of the ocean when it goes out. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we all get to do the short recital, if you want it, a piece of the novel that took place in the exact same place where Bram said it. So that's fun, and it's nice to have a cup of tea or a little refreshment at this place, feel the vibe, and then go back up the hill and drive on to Whitby. So it's just a fun little stopping off place that it's not really on the Dracula map, but we thought it's unique, and it's fun for us to do to say, we've done it.
Yeah, I love that kind of off the beaten path, little new places that Dacre discovers and puts them on the Dracula map. So that's exactly what happens to this place. And it's really cool to be able to say, yeah, we did have not really capital severe, but we did have tea while reading from the novel. And it's a short drive. Of course, the drive from York to Whitby takes about 1.5 hours, sometimes 2 hours, depending. But with this little stop, we break this this drive. It's not a long drive, but it's nice to have a little leg stretcher to get off the minivan and experience this little charming place that is Robin Hood's Bay. And then we get to Whitby. So this is an aerial view of the town. So you get, of course, many of you being on now in the audience know Whitby by heart, so it's nothing new, but some of you might have never been here, and let me tell you, it's a very, very special place. You see the beach, there's this feel of vacation, of holiday. Of course, Bram Stoker chose to have his holiday here, and I'm sure he wasn't disappointed. And then there's also a lot of history here too, all these layers of history. Whitby Abbey, the ruin. Then we have the inner part of town with connections to not only history, but geography and discovering the new world. So all these things come together in a quite small town, but very concentrated in culture, history, and literature. So that's why we're there. So this is one of our favorite places to stay, the Arches in Whitby. It's a very centrally located little inn, very comfortably close to a lot of critical points of meeting and points of having lunch or dinner and so on. And also very close to a very iconic view. As you see on the picture, we can see St. Mary's Church and Whitby Abbey, parts of Whitby Abbey ruin from close to this accommodation. So we start the stay in Whitby. We'll be there around the afternoon on day 2, and we take an orientation walk just to go through the main points of attraction quickly. It's not a walking tour, it's a quick orientation walk together with Dacre, just to prepare and get an overview of the town. And then we enjoy a welcome dinner at the place where Bram Stoker discovered the name Dracula, the place that Dacre was just talking about. The Quayside called today, it's a restaurant, but back in the day it was a library and a public bath.
And this is the book that he actually saw when he was there. It's pretty famous now because people always try to, make up all kinds of stories. Bram knew nothing about Vlad Dracula, knew nothing about this and that. This is the fact that we know that this book not only was in this library, but also the London Library. So this book times 2 was where he got his information. You can see the bit about the connection between Dracula and the Wallachian language meaning devil. So I build my case when we are all together at the lecture that we'll be doing at the actual modern day Whitby Museum in one of their conference rooms. So I'll be telling you much more about it, but it really is an important place because we can see in his notes that he changed the name of his Dracula character from one to another, and this is the reason for that.
Yes, and that page that you talk about, Dacre, now maybe some of you saw it, maybe some of you will see it when joining our expedition. It's one of the most amazing parts of your research, Dacre. It's the genesis of the name Dracula, of Count Dracula. So we are all looking forward to that part. So just a short video of our dinner last time at the Quayside. So this was 2022, right, Dacre? It was the first.
Yeah, it was a nice way to celebrate and just have a glass of champagne and toast that this town, this building. Not exactly sure what room, but this was the place where it all began. This also has a major inspiration that you see right here. And if any of you decide to venture out at nighttime, you'll see why this Gothic atmosphere made such a big impact on my great-granduncle. This is the back of the St. Mary's Church. You're looking down towards the town, but this is the graveyard that he wrote over 90 names off of here. He put it into his notebook, and about 8 of them he put into the story, Swales being one of them. But it's it's wonderful to walk out there at nighttime and feel the vibe yourself, which we heavily encourage people to do. We found a guy that does a really good tour. He's got a partner with him. Sometimes we get Dr. Crank is his name, not because he's cranky, because he's a serious cyclist. But Carl Wittering runs a wonderful tour, and he gives us lots of the history that's not particularly Dracula as well. He gives us the fishing history, the trading history, the whaling history, the innovations that have come through Whitby. So we get a really good perspective from him. And sometimes if he's not in town, his partner, who is a wonderful lady, gives us great info as well. And then I fill in the Dracula part. So this is one of the things we get, this couple hours of a walking tour through the town, seeing some of the significant places in the town other than St. Mary's Church and Whitby Abbey. So we really get a good flavor of sort of what's going on in the town. We also reenact some of the walks, from the novel. Lucy's walk from one side of the town to the other, up into the graveyard, up the 199 steps, and how Mina went to try to save her, and so on. So yeah, Carl is wonderful, and he likes our company, I think, as much as we enjoy his. And as I said, we'll be doing a lecture in the wonderful Whitby Museum. Whitby, again, besides Dracula, has an incredible maritime history. And they've got a really, really cool museum there. So it's a wonderful place to visit, and they have a nice room in there with a screen. And we'll do a presentation there, as well as get to see some of the Captain Cook sites and so on associated with the town. One of the things Carl's brings us to, not only the whale bones, which you can see a great photo op. You see the Whitby Abbey and the church through the whale bones. Whitby was a big whaling town. That's, of course, why it's got a maritime history. But also on the left, you see the Screaming Tunnel. And one of the videos we took last year that everybody had a chance for is to scare the ghosts away from Whitby. All the souls of the dead lost at seas apparently come back and go through this tunnel, and we're there to scare them off. So you scream as loud as you can. And as Carl says, yeah, and then the locals also know that there's lots of tourists in town making all the screams through the tunnel. And you see what's also very cool for my family is that the bench, probably not the exact same bench, but it's a bench commemorating Bram Stoker's contribution to where he sat and did some of his notes, which is really kind of fun. And we get to take good photos in many places to build up your Instagram and your Facebook posts. Again, here we are, we're sitting there with the novel that I travel with me, so you can use for photo ops and get a feel for, I think it's great just to sit there and think for a few moments quietly every now and then. This is where Bram was hatching ideas that turned into this novel that changed the world. And it's pretty cool to think of that. So it's also time you can go on your own free time, if you're a writer, and sit on your own on any of these benches and look out over the town and think of all the mysteries, all the history that came from this place. And it's Dracula and much, much more. This is the actual location where Bram stayed. It's kind of cool because they kept records in the newspaper, and you can actually see that 6 Royal Crescent is listed in the newspaper, Mrs. Vesey's guest house, and you can see a picture of it back in Bram's day on the left, and you can see where it looks today. And they actually have a plaque on the wall that the Civic Society has put there. We can take a photo up there. Funnily enough, the 3rd floor is actually an Airbnb Bram's View self-catered apartment you can go and stay in if you ever want to go up there on your own. But it's also the place, the Crescent, where Bram had Lucy and Mina and Lucy's mom stay when they were there. So he was prone to using places where he stayed, things that he did, places that he walked, just changed names ever so slightly, but we all know what he's talking about.
Right, and of course we will try to allow some free time for own walks, some shopping. This will happen on both the anniversary day and the coming day, so you can explore and experiment with Whitby on your own and at your own pace as well. But be sure to be back in the evening, because we are going to have a themed dinner. Now, this is the location where we had the themed dinner in the past years, and there was a lecture by Dacre. We slightly changed this plan, and we are focusing on the dinner. If you are into cosplay or goth clothing or hats, we invite you to apply that passion and get dressed or dress up for the team dinner. But if you don't, you can, of course, join as you usually are. And of course, make sure you wear good shoes for walking, because after the team dinner, we usually do the 199 steps up to the churchyard. So it's not a very difficult climb, and we do a lot of stops for catching our breath and for taking photos. But of course, it's 199 steps. So you need to bear that in mind when choosing your shoes for the costume, if you wish to wear a costume. And as you see on this picture, some of us did choose to have some Victorian or Gothic inspired clothing on, and some of us just simply wore their normal dinner attire. No matter what, it will be very enjoyable, that we can guarantee.
And we get very lucky sometimes when our good friend, who's also a friend of Glenn's and Allison's and Gary's, Neil Riot, who's a brilliant photographer, as you can see, he comes and if we get a good sunset like this, you can see how incredible of a team photo we get, and he makes these available to everybody. So with good luck, we'll have another good sunset, good weather, and it's a photo, for the centuries. Really, it is. And occasionally you get a chance to take a picture with me or Allison or Gary or Glenn, anybody like that. We could do, sort of posted shots so that you've got something to be really happy of when you go. And it's all thanks to Neil and his generosity.
Yeah, it's amazing souvenirs, and we're very grateful for his participation and his professional taking photos of the happenings during that evening. So this being said, the 127th anniversary will be concluded. And of course, you can get to spend some more time around St. Mary's churchyard before heading back to the accommodation down in the center of Whitby.
Yeah, we make sure that there is plenty of time to go back up to, and I think the next slides show this, to go back up to Whitby Abbey. There's a really nice visitor center there. You can go in and look around. There is one of our favorite spots now, and I say that for Allison and Glenn and Gary, a Whitby brewery up on top. So if you go ahead, Gloria, on the slides, I think we might get close to that. Yeah, so this is one of Colin's incredible drone shots. So there's a visitor center. You can actually walk inside this whole place, take some cool photos. And then you see off to the right, that little, I'm pretty sure that's the building off on the right. I could be wrong though, if that is the brewery, but it's close to there anyway, where you sit down and after a nice walk up the steps, and when you get to the top, if you're really lucky, there'll be a really cool mist that will roll in, which sometimes happens in the springtime when you get a little bit of an inversion, and it really does look like the old folklore, the souls of the dead rolling in, looking for their places to rest in peace. So there's such cool atmosphere up at this location. So there'll be plenty of time to wander on your own. It's kind of more spontaneous than, on the tour itself. But we're not going to just let you go and get lost. We'll make sure everybody knows where they're going. We're also going to plan some time walking down the beach, walking down the cliff. So this final day in town lets you walk all through this really cool area up on the top of the town, as opposed to down in the bottom and when we're down on either sides. This is a really cool photo. If you take a really close look at this, Colin Hamilton actually picked this off, where the sunset is seen through the windows of St. Mary's Church, and it's described in the book by Mina as seeing the red eyes of Dracula. And it's a very unique picture. You don't get it many times of the year based on where the sun is. We got lucky, and Colin caught the incredible photo. So maybe we'll get lucky and catch that one as well in real life.
Amazing. And we need to say that this is day 4. So this day will be dependent on weather and tide. So we will see how we adjust weather and tide and plan all these visits and all these activities together depending on that. So it will be more or less an outdoorsy day. We will an outdoors day. So as Dacre said, visiting the Abbey and the visitor center. In case there's bad weather in the morning, we do that in the morning, and then we save the hike or walk if we are going to do a walk for the afternoon, or vice versa, depending on how we get on with the weather and tides. And that will be then decided on the spot. So we need to be a little bit flexible about this day.
One of the things we'll be investigating is the actual site where the Dimitri came in and Bram turned it into the Demeter. Not sure if any of you seen the movie yet, but I would highly recommend Last Voyage of the Demeter. I'm not sure if it's made its way to the UK yet. I know it's on streaming in certain areas. Not a whole lot of it occurs in Whitby, but certainly the very beginning and the end do. But this is the ship, the Dimitri, that Bram actually learned about while he was in Whitby. You can see the page on the left is a page from the actual Coast Guard logbook that Bram was able to talk his way into. And he then used this information for this very interesting supernatural storm that blew in the Count's ship. And in fact, the real ship came in under very interesting conditions as well. So it's pretty cool to actually stand in that spot and notice that this is where Bram based this iconic part of the novel and the arrival of the Count after this. Here's actual handwriting of Bram's and some of his sketching. Now, if you look closely, because as Gloria said, this is a very outdoors day, and Bram was there actually for a couple of weeks. So he experienced, I'm sure, lots of wonderful days and lots of not so wonderful days. But here is a time when Bram Stoker, the author, the clerk of petty sessions, but also the artist, the man that was a founding member of the Dublin Painting and Sketching Club, used that artistic side of his to describe, with his terrible handwriting, the different colors, the blue-black clouds, the cliff clouds where rain was descending in places, the sapphire blue sea darkening to turquoise, and then the view above Upgang. Upgang is Scandinavian for sunrise. So he's got the sunrises here. So what is very cool is seeing firsthand Bram sitting either at that bench or at some place up above and looking out and noticing the different colors that you can see based on the sun and the clouds and so on, and how he as a painter was describing in chapter 6, 7, and 8 the different subtleties of the ocean, of the clouds, of the rainstorms, because he wanted things to be accurate to Whitby. So here's one of those things that hopefully we'll get a chance to experience. And again, if you are a writer yourself, I urge you, bring your notebook. And you too can sit around and make observations on what you see, what you hear, and also what you feel, because that could be parts of some poetry, could be parts of your own writing. It certainly was something that affected Bram in a good way. There is talk about colorful. In the summer times, they pull out these little changing cabins along Whitby. But again, we'll walk along here. And again, based on the tides, I know Allison, who's here, and Gary walk their dog here all the time. Sometimes at low tide, it's very low and you can go on the beach. So again, dependent upon tides, weathers, we will make accommodation. They'll get plenty of outdoor activity. So I urge you also to think about layers. It can be in the same 2 or 3 hour period, you're going to want to put on a vest, a fleece, and a raincoat, and possibly a hat, and then also take some of the stuff off. So a little day pack is always helpful when you do these walks. So have stuff accordingly, so you're comfortable, be able to layer up, layer down, based on what sort of your internal temperature is as you're walking and building up heat, and the external temperature as well. And Gloria, why don't you talk about the dinner? I'm going to talk about the location, because this is one of my favorite places in the town. And the reason is I've been there a number of times. It's at the foot of the 199 steps, but J.D. Barker and I actually set the Duke of York as a setting in our story Dracula, because it was there as an inn when Bram Stoker was there. So we had some of our characters spend the night in the inn at the bottom of the 199 steps. And of course, Gloria, now you can talk about the sort of the ending dinner we have there.
Yeah, so there's one more connection. It's not a Dracula connection, but is a Dracula connection. So there you have J.D. Barker's and Dacre Stoker's book, making another literary connection to our expedition. So this is the final dinner. This is the last night in Whitby. This is where we conclude our tour and where we wrap up, probably together, cheering with a glass of wine, champagne, beer, whatever you prefer. And just before heading back to our accommodation, maybe have a last look, or maybe even a last climb up the 199 steps, depending on how many calories you want to get off after dinner. So this is the last evening spent in Whitby, and this is brings us to day 5. This is the last day where we simply check out from Whitby, and we have a transfer again with our North Yorkshire expert, Costin, and with his Dracula's minibus. He will take us back to York, and that's where we end our tour. So from York, you will be able to take your train back to London or Manchester, or stay in York a few more days, or do whatever else you would like to do around the area, which is a very offering area. There's a lot of activities that you might want to do. So we will get back to you on exact times as soon as we get a little bit more bookings and see when and where people are coming from and heading back to, so we can plan this day 5. So this is also a quite flexible day at the moment. And being such a small exclusive group, we will be able to agree and decide together when we need to get back to our respective places of flight, train, and so on. And we will organize everything starting from there. So this is the last day, and this is a very nice, another very nice souvenir of 2023 this time. This is the tour that was this May, this last May. And here are the tour facts for next May. So once again, the dates 24th to 28th of May, and the start and end of the tour are in York. That's the hub. The price and the single supplement. So the price is per person in double occupancy. And booking flights, please don't book any flight before you got your tour first booked with us, and then after you got our okay, because we need a minimum number of participants in order to organize this tour, and that's a 5, so 5 participants. So after we have that confirmed, we will confirm your tour. We will confirm the fact that you can now book your flight, so you don't book any flights in vain. And then it's never in vain to go to Whitby, but of course, everyone wants to go to Whitby with Dacre Stoker. So yeah, that's the details about the booking. Also, travel insurance is very important. We say it's mandatory, actually, to travel. So never travel abroad without a travel insurance. And even within the UK, if you come from the UK and want to do this tour, do sign an insurance that covers possible forcibly cancellations that you might need to make in case you get sick, or any other emergency that might appear. We thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for your attention. Please do follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Have a look at our homepage on experience-transylvania.com. Thank you very much indeed, Dacre and Nora.